Hey guys, I forgot to say, dispute all of this in the comments down below and let me know what you think, because I'm not right 100% of the time, probably not even 25. So let me know down in the comments and just say what you want. All right, enjoy the video.
Hey guys, Jaeger's Garage here, and I'm coming at you from some shack in the middle of the woods, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm at right now, but guess what? We're going to talk about today the three main different types of vehicles. You got your gas engines, you got your diesel engines, and then you got your electric engines, and I mean they're electric motors, electric cars. There you go. And we're going to go over like all of the differences, the pros, the cons, which one I prefer. I think you can already kind of guess. Diesel. And I just realized there's like mold growing on that wall, and I'm probably getting some type of poisoning from being in here, but that's alright because we won't be in here long. I'll start out by saying that a gas engine, all of you should be pretty familiar with. A gas engine being, it uses a spark system, so spark plugs, because diesels don't have spark plugs. If a mechanic comes up to you and tells you you need to change spark plugs in a diesel, he's lying. Unless the older diesel engines used a pony motor that was a little gasoline engine to get it rotating and start it up. That's actually pretty cool, but you don't find those like on any relatively new diesels. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm just making sure there's nothing in here. I keep hearing something like walking. I swear. I think there's like a squirrel in here or something. But anyway, so you got your gasoline engines that use spark plugs. You got your diesel engines that use compression to ignite the fuel, because diesel is less flammable than gasoline, which is why it basically squeezes it really hard until it builds up enough heat to go boom, and then that's why most diesel engines are very loud and clanky, except for the new ones, because they have better injectors that can go as it like it's a whole process. The older diesel engines, just big squirt of fuel, bam, clank. That's why it's so clanky. That's why diesels are so clanky. We'll go over that, but yeah. So, and then you have electric, which I don't know near enough about, and I got to learn a bunch about. But you got your electrics, which is normally like a dual motor. So they have one motor in the front, one motor in the back that run the two back tires and two front tires, or just one motor in the back. I think the older models do, and then some of them even have tri-motors. So one like basically assisting motor for the back motor, and then front motor, I think is how it works. And then they have hybrids and all that stuff. But right off the beat, I think we'll figure out which one I want. But we're going to get out of this mold infested place, and I'll see if I can find my way back to my house. Now, gasoline engines, like the one seen here, this is I don't really remember what liter, it probably says somewhere on here, but it is a 3-cylinder. It is a 1.3 3-cylinder with a turbo. Gasoline engines commonly weren't turboed all that often until probably around like the 2000s, 2010s, something like that, where they started getting more popular, turboed for more fuel efficiency and all that. So this one's turboed. You got the common thing, coil packs. Coil pack ignites the spark plug. Boom, it lights the fuel, causes it to go down. Very simple system. The longest running system that they have is gasoline engines, and they've varied and changed throughout the years of quite a bit, but the thing that remains the same: coil pack, spark plug, 4-stroke. You got 2-stroke engines, but they're not as common, and they don't really run in vehicles all that often, if at all. You can see it says turbo right there. I've already kind of went over that, but that means that this has a basically, I mean, you should know what a turbo is, but it just forces air into it, and it probably has an intercooler. Yeah, I see intercooler tubing. So it has an intercooler which basically like takes the air that is forcing into the motor and cools it down a lot, and so that it can condense and get as much air into the cylinders, because more air means you can put more fuel, which means you can get more power or more fuel efficiency, depending on how you tweak everything. Now,
gasoline engines also can have superchargers, which is pretty cool. Which is, instead of a turbo using exhaust, a supercharger runs off of a belt. Superchargers have parasitic draw, which basically means like at low RPMs they're harder on it, because it's basically like if you've ever had a Mazda or something, you have a clutch fan on it or just a straight fan, and it kills the vehicle in power, and then you put electric fans on it and it's less, because that does count. It does matter. Same as a power steering pump, all that. Underdrive pulleys, all those things lets it spin easier, so you make more power, and then once you get up, you know, it's like that thing basically. Diesels don't tip. Well, I shouldn't talk about diesels yet. So that is pretty much gasoline engines. I mean, there's not really anything else to say. But the pros of gasoline engines, I would say, would be like, they're just relatively simple. Most of them are relatively simple, and you got tried and true. Gasoline is everywhere. You're always going to be able to find gasoline. They get typically good fuel mileage. They don't have a lot of power or torque comparatively as far as like pulling, but they've made strides to make more. The only thing with a gasoline engine is that typically if you're going to be towing a good bit, you're going to be burning a lot of fuel. But for just driving around, putting around, they make a decent amount of power, and they're really reliable, and they do it. They do it just fine. Now, we're on to diesels. Now, diesels are really cool, and I'm definitely a fan of diesels because they make so much power. They're huge and clanky, loud, which is something that I like. They sound freaking awesome. They have giant turbos on them because diesels are overbuilt, so they can take all of the forced induction that you would ever want it to. So this is my 6.0 Power Stroke, and this guy does not have any DEF fluid or anything, any emissions equipment, and he just loves running. He hasn't died on me at all. No, not by any means. So the pros and cons for a diesel is 2 batteries. So you're gonna have to spend more on batteries because it takes more to crank it over because of compression. It could be considered a con, it could be considered a pro. Basically, if you run out of oil, your engine isn't gonna run, so it kind of protect itself because it requires oil, at least on these, the 7.3s and the 6.0s, and I don't know about the 6.4s. I don't know if they switched over to a different, I think they did. I think they have a different injection system on the 6.4s, but don't quote me on that. I know the 6.7s have piezoelectric injectors, but these at least are driven by oil pressure to fire. So if there's no oil pressure, then it won't fire and it shuts down, which is actually really nice because it saves the engine a lot of times when you run out of oil. If you have a big oil leak or something that just springs up. These trucks run really cool. Diesels are really awesome because if they run out of coolant, you let them idle, they'll basically cool themselves down because they run so efficiently. They got so much, basically just, they are so much motor that they just cool themselves down. They're really efficient. They are technically better for the environment because they don't release particulates, they release soot, unless you're running a DEF system, in which the DEF, basically diesel, diesel engine fluid, it just uses it to burn off the chemicals at a really easy or really better rate, or finer particulates or something like that. Don't quote me. I don't know DEF systems because I don't have anything with it. Any of the newer diesels, you'll have to deal with DEF unless you get it deleted. If you live in California, you're not getting it deleted, or if you do and you get caught, you're gonna get fined a lot. So it's kind of like running red dye in South Carolina. You're not supposed to do it, and if you get caught, you'll get fined. Red dye is basically like off-road fuel. You're only supposed to use it off-road. So we got more torque, kind of this same amount of horsepower, but pull anything you want for a diesel. It's freaking awesome. And I mean, this truck gets like 18 miles per gallon, so it gets like better than my F-150 over there, which is a gas engine. It's a 4.6 2 valve, And my dad with a 3-valve doesn't even get that good of fuel mileage. Diesel is more expensive, but it didn't used to be like that, honestly. So it's really neat. Really love diesels. They're my favorite out of all of the types. Electric is cool because of the instant torque, but this guy can pull down a mountain if he wanted to. I've pulled a trailer, 11,000 pound trailer, all over America with this truck, and it's freaking awesome. It's just, diesels are so cool and they sound amazing, and oh, I love them. I love them opposed to gas engines. But don't get me wrong, I do like gas engines. I'm not opposed to saying that, you know, they don't all have their pros and cons, because gas engines can sound amazing. I got Flowmasters on this truck and it sounds sick and it runs good. And gas engines, they're technically, the fuel is cheaper because of how our economy is set up and everything right now. And gas engines, they're a little bit easier to understand, a little bit easier to work on. You just change the spark plugs, you know, and change the injectors, intake, you can get to all of that. Anything on this truck, you know, injectors, glow plugs, because that's a whole nother scenario on the diesel. You have to worry about glow plugs because it's got to get warm before it cranks, because most diesels have trouble cranking in cold conditions, which is another reason why gasoline engines, you know, could be considered better, because they crank in low temperature situations. But also, this guy, I've had him in like 30-degree weather and it cranks over for a minute, don't get me wrong, but it cranks up. But my F-150 over there would crank up instantly. So it's just another one of those pros and cons thing. Now, while I may not have an electric car, we do have an electric Polaris. So let's check this out. There are batteries in there. Yeah, there we go. All right. So this is our electric Polaris that uses 8 12-volt batteries. Now this is basically like an overblown golf cart. However, this guy uses 8 of them, so it's up there. It's got a lot of power. And this thing, when it works, is really cool. It's got like basically instant torque because it just powers a giant motor in the back. I'll show you that now. So you go back here and there's just a big giant motor. And it's all electronically controlled. Power goes directly to the motor. And this thing does go pretty fast, honestly. But the one problem with this is overheating. This one overheats and blows batteries up, which is very unfortunate. And I have actually heard of electric cars having these issues, but very few. Most of the electric car bugs have kind of been worked out. You still wouldn't catch me like actually using one, because, you know, charging stations aren't really around here, which is something to think about. And charging right now is technically cheaper, but as it becomes more of a thing, I think it'll kind of equalize. Electric vehicles are also just kind of more expensive to work on because, you know, they're batteries and they degrade over time, as of right now, until they get like a new technology. I know Toyota has been working on a new technology, like solid state batteries, and I've heard a bunch about it, and they keep saying that it's going to be a thing really soon, and then I keep seeing them push it back basically, so I'm not really sure exactly. So basically, electric vehicles, if you want to just tally it up, electric vehicles, instant torque, battery degradation over time, as for right now, so you're eventually going to have to spend a buttload of money on batteries. Charging is cheaper, as for right now. You can have all-wheel drive models, like very easier. It's a lot easier to implement all-wheel drive in an electric vehicle than it is that. One of the cons of electric is whatever you do, it's going to hurt your range. So if you turn your AC on while you're sitting or charging, it's going to make your charge time longer. All of that needs to be powered, and it's not powered by a gas engine, so it's coming from your batteries. I've also heard Teslas and stuff, if the 12-volt battery dies or has an issue, then you can't operate the vehicle, which kind of like, what? That's pretty crazy. But again, I don't know enough about them or the situation to really say whether or not, you know, I would own one or get one. I personally would not, because I just love diesels, and I just want diesels. If I could own nothing but diesels, I would. If I could have a small engine like diesel, but unfortunately we don't really allow that for the emissions in the US and all that, which is why Australia gets the little light duty trucks like the Toyota Hilux and the diesel Rangers and all that. But it's whatever.